the go-ahead when you're ready. You're ready, okay. This is the Cecil Township Board of Supervisors workshop session for the comprehensive plan. I'm going to call this workshop to order. Tom, do you want to start since you're the one that...
See it. Can everybody hear me now?
No, I don't think it's working.
How about this now?
Yeah.
All right. Last week at this hearing, if you thought there were a little bit of fireworks at the meeting between Cindy and I, that won't happen tonight. It turns out we were probably talking about the same thing to get to the same goal, but I guess wasn't getting her terminology and she wasn't getting mine. So I think it's going to be a good meeting tonight. When we talked about
Is there
How
a
about
microphone
this?
you can hold? Jack, is there one you can hold?
All right, I'll hold this one.
I have a pen.
I'll hold this one. That sounds bad. We talked about it at different times that our steering committee came up with the mixed use category. That's all that the yellow with the orange. The orange with the stripes on it. All these areas here, and I think the term mixed use was kind of misleading. It's not a mixed up use. It probably should have been like variable uses or something like that. But I didn't on this map. I didn't show any changes to the mixed use that they showed on there. So all those areas you see, the only thing I did is colored them in up there with that red as a residential land use category, or that green as a commercial land use category. Because that's about our only choice. If there's a mixed use zone, the uses can't actually be mixed amongst themselves. They have to be, if it allows commercial, they have to be together, and if it allows residential, it has to be together. So, and I'll use an example. The biggest parcel was the Cowden property. It's about 500 acres. About 350 of this property, like say Elizabeth Cowden's, was in that mixed use category. So this area where they showed 980, that's 980 right along there, up there. That fronts on that state road. So it was proposed to be part of the commercial land use category. This is Shafani Road right here, and that area, just because it's on the other side of the Cowden or Shafani Road, and it abuts all this residential property here. If there's going to be a land use category of residential, that's where it should be. Now, this area down here, this all fronts on 980 right there. This area coming up Glass Hill, it's behind the township building and the public works building. If we can get some commercial development there, that would be a good area also that's potential to develop up off of Miller's Run, which would be gravity flowing down to the sewer system. Now, a tract over here, I'm not sure who owns all of that. Some of it is Delbo's. So I showed that area along 980 to all be the commercial land use category, and as most developments, they have either the more severe uses near the front, shown that as the commercial land use category, and as the property develops behind it, to show that as a residential land use category. Now, all those lines you see, they're on a parcel, and I don't know exactly which parcel it should follow, but normally zoning follows a property line or some natural road or some natural feature. Well, this, like I said, there's no real natural features, so a property line is a reasonable place to change a category from commercial to residential. This area up here, this was all under PRD. I did show us taking that out of the equation because it doesn't make any sense where we just approved a PRD for this area. Basically it's a done deal. It's going to be residential. Their plan is all laid out, so it doesn't make any sense to change that zone to a mixed use area. Same thing right here. This is Traditions of America right here. And that's a done deal. I mean, it's not all built out. I don't know what percentage, Dan, do you think it's done, that PRD?
It's all approved.
Approved, but I mean, actually, it's not all built out, but Yeah, this is showing about half of it, and I don't know how old, how updated that layout is, but they're gonna build all those senior living houses right in this area, so it didn't make any sense to change that to a mixed use, because it's not gonna be a residential or a commercial land use category. This is all that area that T.A. Robinson owns a big portion of that. And Dan, there's a big property right in here. It has a company name on it, and I wasn't sure if you knew who owns this area right here.
Okay, I thought that was all Sabatino's
I-
property. We could check it.
But on the tax map, there's a company name for it, and it might be one of his companies.
Right.
But he also owns this area here. Now, the only thing I'm showing is this is the area that's subject for the meeting tonight, or the hearing tonight on that illustrative site plan for that Cool Valley area. In the first place, this is the area we're working with right now. I lost it. I lost that. Yes. I put the bang on it.
Show here. You do.
Oh. All right. This area here, this is the area that's subject to the hearing tonight. And it's that illustrative site plan. He also, Sabatino, the developer, also owns most of this in here. And to me, if that's going to be that, it's called Interstate Highway Plan Development. This should probably be all that property because it all fronts on the interstate, right? That's 79 right there. And so, I mean, it makes sense because he owns this property and he's going to extend that development into there. This area here, it's currently, we had it originally set up whenever that Sabatino came to buy that big development of over 900 acres. We created that business park development basically for his type of development. He wanted an industrial development, but we knew we had this area in South Point that was really a high-class development with government and private funding and a lot of covenants on all these properties. And we knew we'd never get another development like South Point on a completely private development. And if you're all aware of the Teodori Industrial Park, it's kind of it's a raw industrial park. There's just no amenities. There's just nothing to it. I think he showed me. I forget which one you picked here, Jack.
Okay.
Uh,
PNG file, yep. On the license.
Okay, thanks. I forget where we were. We came up with that business park development. It was kind of halfway between the I-1, a raw industrial development, and the high standards in the South Point. We figured we still needed an industrial tax base, so that zone was created to be somewhere between I-1 and the South Point, the SD district. So that was a good fit for them at the time. And if right now it's showing that it's this highway, interstate highway development district. Well, that allows a lot of residential areas. And you'll see in this part, whenever you see the proposal for the illustrative site plan, half of what he's doing there is actually, looks to be residential. And we already have this basically as the BPD, which is an industrial development, and or the industrial zone. And for a tax base, we can't afford to give that up and end up having more houses in that area. Only about 25 or 28% of the township is developed right now. There's so much open area with the sewer areas we have now, like on the Miller's Run sewer plant. All that area can develop up there because it's gravity flow coming down. So I think it would be really a terrible mistake to end up losing some industrial property, in industrially zoned property. I've been here for 29 years, and we've never got an inch of industrial property for the township. And anytime somebody proposes that, is there something?
You're fine, keep going.
Anytime somebody proposes some industrial property being changed, the residents come out and we get mobbed, and then we end up not doing it. So people wanted that there. We had all the hearings about it. We also, neighbors surrounding it had asked us to be a part of that business park development. So we have it, we just can't give that up. We just need to keep that for a strictly a business park or an industrial park and not let residents go in there. Now, this owner may not be happy about that if we don't allow residents in there, but I mean, I think we got to stick to our guns and at least keep that area. This area over here, I talked about that. That was also part of a BPD development or zoning originally. And if it's going to stay mixed use, I mean, I think it should still be the business park, but if it's going to stay mixed use, it should at least be the commercial category. This area down here, there's just homes down there. That's the only developed part for residential homes of Hahn Road. This one more area up here. Down here, that's where the Lawrence treatment plant is going to be going. That's where the little industrial park is, down below Lawrence, right by the Purple Bridge. The rest of this is mixed use. It's all residential between Georgetown and Hill Station Manor and all the village here. That doesn't make any sense to put that as a commercial category. So on here, I'm proposing that we need categories in the mixed use, and the two ones that the mixed use allows is a residential land use category and a commercial land use category. Now, the one thing about this, it does give the opportunity for residents, like say, whoever owns this, it allows, you'll see the text in a minute, I'll put it up on what's permitted in there. Anybody who owns that, they can put whatever kind of residential housing they want. I mean, some zones have, you're allowed to put single family only, others duplexes and apartments. This thing, I wrote it on the list that they could end up having single family, two family, multifamily, townhouse, garden apartments, condominiums, any type of residential structure to be their choice. So if a developer comes to, say, this owner here and wants to buy that part for apartments, that owner can sell it to him. You know, it's her choice. It's not, we're not going to dictate that it has to be apartments there and it has to be single family there. So it does give the property owners that, on their tracts of ground, it gives them the, right to choose what kind of use is going to be in their, under their land use category. Can we put this up, Jack? Or yours? I think you might have it on there already. Sure, go ahead.
Actually, if you're going to ask a question, can you step to the microphone because we're recording it? Yeah. Thank you. Hold on. Just
isn't that industrial?
Industrial.
That's just a straight I-1 industrial.
Thank you.
Can you make that any bigger? I don't know if they can read that. This is in the form of a draft ordinance. And now it's my amateur writing, but we'd need Dan and somebody from his office or Gretchen to help actually officiate the language. But the intent is to create a district that creates, as our steering committee asked for, a land use category of residential and commercial. But if you read down there a little further here, it shows that it gives the property owners the right to pick whatever kind of use they want in their different categories. The residential land use category, it's just a few uses. It's farms that are allowed in every zone, and every single type of housing that I just mentioned, home occupation, which is typical for residential, and home office. And this one here for conditional use, the law requires us to make community residential homes. I know of two of them in the township. That's where 4 people or less that are handicapped or have some kind of a physical or mental disabilities. They have a right to live in a home environment. And I know we have one on Coomer Road and one on Meadowcrest in the FLIR plan. And that's the only 2 that I know of. So that would be under conditional use, which is we're able to do that like that. That commercial land use category, we're talking about if it's attractive, and this came from our steering committee, they had asked for this in particular. Not that one. Oh. Dan, that sheet that you just gave us that had the types of uses from what the steering committee asked for, remember you said you gave us a different chart?
Yeah.
Oh, I got it right here.
You need it? I got some.
Just gonna bring it here. I can't find it in here. They talked about allowing, on certain tracts of land, to allow a development to go in that's residential. It'd be the only type of residential that they talked about that could go in on the commercial land use category. Now, I don't know how the board feels about that. We still have to talk about that, but that has to be the way they suggested it. I've suggested if it's a 25-acre lot or more, they would be able to do a development that comes in as on R1 or R2 standards. In other words, they can't put a PRD in it. It's going to require a minimum tract of 25 acres, and they have to put a 50-foot buffer or perimeter buffer around it. That's something that the board has to discuss, whether we want to allow any type of residential in that commercial land use category, but it came up as a recommendation from the steering committee. Then the rest of it, you can see that it's all the typical commercial uses we've had in C1, C2, and C3, except there's some serious uses taken out, like the gas stations and body shops and taverns and things like that. These ones that you see with an asterisk here, after those are the ones that are known to generate more vehicle traffic. And as we're down on the bottom here, those type of business would have to front on one of the state roads. It couldn't be in the back part of the developed property. Then there's a list of uses, conditional uses. Again, some of these things we have to have, like a community residential facility and a court adjudicated home. I made copies of that, what the definitions that are currently in our ordinance right now. So I don't know if everybody has a copy of the ordinance, but that last page, those are the type of facilities we have to have in there, and some are state licensed. Most of them are actually state licensed, but some are actually occupied with more than 7 people or more than 4 people, and there's a state licensed staff members that are required to be there 24 hours a day. We've never allowed those type of facilities right in straight residential, but this is the purpose of this kind of zone that allows more of this residential type in this milder commercial district that's being proposed. So I don't know if there's any questions about it. That's generally what we need to categorize our mixed use and make it clear that it's not a mixed up use. It's it's two uses that are could be on the same piece of property, but there are standards between them.
I think the world might be ending that you and I actually agree, right? Any board questions? Can you turn on your microphone?
The buildings you're holding at 3,500 square feet, I think that's too small.
Where's the 3,500?
The paper you gave us. Not to exceed 3,500 square feet.
Yeah, we can adjust that.
I just want to see which one.
Yeah, where we're on.
Oh, on the individual permitted use.
Oh, we talked about that, Tom. We were just.
Yeah, we can.
We
I'm just
can
saying
adjust them.
that was in our commercial zone already, so I just really basically pulled all the mild commercials and relisted them again. I didn't come up with those just now. They're all in our book.
Ron, what do you think it should be?
Well, I think Dollar General is only 8,500.
Dan can help us figure out, right, Dan?
Well, yeah,
What-
we can go through individual uses like that, but I'm saying we had to decide what mixed use is going to be. I
Yes.
think it's what the steering committee visioned, but again, we could have also just called it mixed use and actually named each of those properties as a separate zone. So this will be creating a brand new zone, and I think the number is going to be 9 16, I might be.
I thought we said it was 918. I thought we
Or
had
917.
916 and
Yeah,
you,
we put that, another zone in between
Yeah.
since then. But whatever, it'd be the last number in our ordinance book. But for the uses by right, if you see some of those you think could be conditional uses, these are the ones that we're basically required to have. If you see some of those ones up there you think that are more serious, that should be under a conditional use, since this is supposed to be a mild commercial, or at least just a compatible commercial with residential. So I mean, that's something you can all take that home and go over, but I guess we got to get past the area that if this is the way we want to approach it, to have a mixed use with 2 land use categories in it. The details are, we can still work on.
if you don't, let me start that sentence again. If you look through this when you're at home and you're like, oh, I think this needs to change, you can tell Tom, or you can tell Don or Jack, and we'll make the
Yeah,
adjustments.
Jack has it all in there where he can add things and he can keep it for all of us to look. Like he can add, if you say Ron calls and mentions about that 3,500, he can add it in a blue color or something like that, and we can all look at it and say, yeah, I think that's a better idea.
Right.
I was just trying to get the general idea of 2 land use categories in it.
Yep.
Just one comment regarding Tom, you and I talked about over on is it Tomahawk Lane?
Yeah.
About extending that residential mixed use up to encompass that little corner where the Marshall property is and the historic house.
It doesn't make sense to have it zoned something that we can't actually use it for.
Yeah,
anyways.
that was a little,
Oh,
just that little appendage right here.
That should be the residential land use category instead of the
Right.
commercial.
Right.
Yeah, again, that's
Because it's
maybe
protected.
we can write that down right now to have that.
Yeah.
One of the things that would be changed. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention too, as you're aware, Freddie Delba has come and talked to us about that piece of property he owns with the barn on it, where O'Hara and Shafani and Muse Bishop meet. And can you use, I can zoom in on that.
Right there,
Yeah, I'm getting it.
right there by Lizzie's. Little finger.
It's on, yeah, this piece right here. So, yeah, well, that's the piece with it. So it's this piece right here. No, I'm sorry, it's
No, it's not. It's
right in here.
Yes.
This piece here, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
This piece here.
Yes.
It's all that mixed use. It was proposed by the committee to have it go to that far, that distance. If we extended that down into that property, it would become mixed use, but it would still be the residential land use category like all the property. I'm going to zoom back out. Surrounding it. That residential mixed use category abuts the plan on Markwood.
Markwood Acres.
The advantage for him that right now it's zoned as R2, and R2 is pretty restrictive, even though it's residential. And I have that right here. That R2 allows farms, single-family detached and attached dwellings, and 2-family dwelling, and it says multifamily dwellings. That's about all he can do with that. The advantage, I think, if he's mixed use, if we create mixed use residential land use category, he can pick any kind of development he wants in there that's on the list. Basically, any kind of homes. He could put condominiums there if he wanted.
He could what?
He could put condominiums
Oh,
there.
condominium.
And again, that is distinct from our rest of our dwelling type units in that those are usually sold. They're not apartments where they're rented. People are renters. They actually buy units in a building and they own an interest in the ground and I guess the ground underneath it and the ground around it. So he probably couldn't do that in R2, and I don't know what the market would be for him, but he still has a lot more discretion if it's a mixed-use residential land use category than just a straight R2. And I know he's been asking about being commercial, but
I was
I
just gonna
think,
say, would that satisfy him though?
Well,
Because he came before this board and asked for a zoning change. The commercial was denied.
but the majority has not been interested in putting commercial right when it's surrounded by residential and that little finger there. This, like I said, it gives him some more options on that property. It won't give him commercial if he still wanted that, but it still gives him more options than he has just as a straight R2.
Right.
So that would be another suggestion, and it's
If
give
you're-
him
Spot
given
zoning?
something.
No.
No, it's
Because
that,
a
it's
bus-
all butts, that mixed use.
No commercial.
No, it would be residential. It would be mixed-use
Yeah,
residential.
it's still residential, and it's only
Right.
homes allowed, and there's nothing commercial allowed in it.
As long as there ain't no commercial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, our,
If
the mixed
you're
use.
okay with that, just let Dan know and we can adjust the map accordingly. Or Jack, Dan or Jack.
Okay, I think there was one more we talked about. Yeah, you gotta consider that, the business park development on Cool Valley. Like I said, through all these years, we've never gained any commercial or industrial, land, and we have that right now. As a matter of fact, after we created that zone, we actually talked to everybody, or this property owner surrounding it, and almost all of them said they wanted to be a part of that new business park zone. These are all the residential parcels around it. It made that zone pretty big. A couple of people said they weren't interested, but then we adopted it, created that zone, and probably a year later, several of those property owners came back, because we started having hearings for that development of Cool Valley. We used to meet with a developer, and they asked if they could now be included into it. And at the time, we said it was just too late. They're going to have to do it on their own as an individual application, for a zoning change. But it was popular back then. We got all that. It's basically industrial property that the neighbors are all happy with. So I'm just saying we can't give that up to residential.
It just so happens that we're looking at Coal Valley tonight, but if you look in the, we have the overlay, the IHPD overlay for that whole Sabatino property, all of it. So within there, under business, you get BPD. Business
Right.
use, land use category, you actually get the BPD, you
But-
can do
but Dan,
C1.
that's his choice, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he could, if we changed it to that interstate highway plan development, he could decide to put a lot of residents like he's doing in this section that he's gonna have here tonight.
Right.
So, I mean, that's what I think we have to avoid and not let homes go in that important industrial area.
And that's a part of the illustrative site plan, and that's what you review, and you can determine the base zoning, does not change. But-
You're
but
saying
it's
if we
all-
kept it as interstate highway plan development?
Ye-
No, we can't turn it down. I mean, if he meets the standards of the ordinance, I don't know, we can say, no, we're not gonna let you, put those, that develop
I think Tom's
the permitted use. I mean, how can we stop him if he decided the market's all residential?
Well, you have to, the process that we're looking at tonight is the eyeball piece or more the commercial piece, right? So that piece on the backside, right now, if you look at it, it's zone BPD. I have the zoning map here.
Let's see, right,
My only point in bringing this up is that within that overlay district, you can add on BPD if you wanted, you can do whatever you want within there.
Right, but right now it is BPD. I think.
Right,
you're
that's
saying
the
This
base.
is the actual map to what it is today. So-
That's the base zone, and as it sits today, somebody could come in with a plan and try to change the land, make the land use category there be something different.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
think we should just, right, as mixed use, you're right.
Right.
So to me, I think we have to keep it as a straight BPD zone.
Okay, would you remove the
Yes.
interstate highway overlay?
Yes, it doesn't even touch the interstate. It's actually on all the property on the other side of Morganza Road.
Okay.
I think that business park is all industrial, and I got the list here, and I'm just gonna read just a couple of these things. It allows assembly and packaging of finished, could you put this up there, Jack?
Hey, Tom, while he's putting that up there, you said something about the other people along Merganza Road, the housing, the people that live in the houses along the left-hand side coming from Cansburg on Merganza Road, were they wanting to be included in this also?
Most of them did.
In other words, they were willing to sell their property and their homes to,
No, they didn't have to, but they knew they could
But
get
they
more.
could.
Right, they could sell it as business park development property instead of just residential.
Okay,
But they knew they were gonna be surrounded by business anyway, so they figured
Right.
they have that right to sell, and they can still keep it as residential. They still have all those protections that we have for when somebody builds industrial and residential. There's 150-foot buffers required around it.
but that's strictly on the left-hand side going to
No.
Lewicki Road. That isn't on the right-hand side where they're not planning on
Correct,
developing.
right.
Yeah,
When we
okay.
talk- when we talk to people on Han Road that own property, any area that abutted that application for that, he actually asked for a tip
Because most of the homes on Lewicki Road, they're vacant now.
on Lewicki.
On Lewicki that goes off of Merganza, they're vacant,
Yeah, and all of Grudovich was commercial already.
yes.
So that, it was just people that abutted that piece of property that 900 acres that Sabatino was buying.
And that's all on the left-hand side going up Merganza Road,
yeah, all the way
up
down-
on top of the big hill.
Yep, all the way down to Sadowski's with the junkyard. what used
But
to be a
that's on the
junkyard.
other side of the road.
Or you can see that, what? No, I wanted BPD. This one here. All right. This is what it is right now for it allows assembly and packaging, laboratory, manufacturing of furniture, medical equipment, et cetera. All these types of manufacturing of, we figured it was more quieter manufacturing. It's not some of the heavy industrial manufacturing like metal products. If you read the next one, 5, it's compounding, assembling, and treatment of all these types of goods. Printing service, research activity, warehousing, indoor storage, wholesale trade, and then it still allows the business and professional offices, medical offices, and essential services, and the rest of you see accessory structures and distribution systems. So to me, that's the tax base we need. South Point carried us since 1994. South Point has been carrying our tax base for us. That's why we haven't had to raise taxes. And every parcel's built now. So whatever we're getting from South Point, we will continue to get that. But there's, things keep going up. We just need more industrial tax base, and that's the prime area for it. Just we don't give any of that up.
If there are no more board questions, I'm going to open it up to the public. Any other board questions?
Yes, I have one here. You're talking about that BPD. That's not even considered into this Cool Valley thing that we're going to talk about tonight.
No.
That's across the road.
Right.
That's on the other side, going all the way back. When you come off of the interstate, yes, when you come off of South Point Boulevard and everything, that's that piece of property he got there that he's not even looking into developing at this point in time. The only thing he's looking to develop is this map right here that we have.
It'll be on tonight that fronts on the interstate, it butts the interstate.
Well, yeah, it butts the interstate at the end of Lewicki Road.
But I'm saying it's nothing on that side of Morganza Road.
No,
everything-
it's the other side, but they come up against the PennDOT that has the salt garages and everything at the end of Lewicki Road.
Right.
They're looking to
Aren't they
work a deal
moving
with
that?
PennDOT to get
They're
Aren't-
working
Oh, they
with it.
are.
That's why I thought they were moving that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
the zone there is BPD too, in that
Right,
area.
right. Anybody else have any comment or questions about it?
Hold on one second. I would just ask if you have a question that you step to the microphone, just because we are recording it so that we can catch the question.
Hey, Tom.
Hi, my name is Diana Lewandowski. I live on Klinger Road. A couple questions, and excuse my ignorance. First of all, the map that we're looking at up on the board, at some point in time, will that be available to us as residents?
Once it's approved.
It's just so difficult to see it and to make the connections as you're discussing it.
So you're welcome to come up after our meeting and look at the copies we have. We can't release them yet because they're not approved. Once it's approved, you can get a copy of it via right to know.
Okay,
But the other thing, like other meetings, we collected these because there are going to be some changes that, Dan already was kind of directed to tonight. There's a couple minor changes. So we don't even want these floating out there because
Right.
there's going to
It
be some
gets
changes.
confusing, but we have them, so I think we're gonna have time between now and our 7 o'clock meeting. So you're welcome to come up to any one of us, we all have a copy of it, and look at our copy of it.
okay, that's good for now. My next question is, and here's where I might appear to be ignorant. So my property, once this tentative plan is approved by the board, does this mean that if a developer comes in and desires to purchase my property, that he will have to consider the land use that has been developed, or that has been granted by the board? Or can there in the future be changes that, in other words, if I'm R1 right now?
I got what you, let me stop you really quick, because I think that's a really great point, and I'm actually really glad you brought it up. So just because we approve this, once we approve this, does not mean your zoning changes. This is essentially a vision for the township. So it's a future plan. Nothing on your property will change because we approve this. We would have to approve a zoning change to your property, and we could do it property by property as people come to us. This board does have the power to change it all at once. I don't think there's a desire to do that, but we could do that. But just because this passes does not mean your current zoning changes.
Okay, and you've mentioned that before, but I just needed to hear it again.
I'm glad you asked it, because I wanted to bring it up again anyways.
Yeah, and then, Tom, the one other thing, Tom. So these specific bullet points that you have under your individual land uses, so they can vary, in other words, because you can't possibly cover every possible potential land use that a developer has in mind for future development. So that can also be altered?
They can.
Am I clear?
We will have a list of special exceptions that we know of that are similar, and that an applicant can ask the zoning hearing board. Our board hears variances and zoning changes. Our zoning hearing board addresses, like if you come up and you say, well, the use I have for this, it's not on this list, but it's similar to all these three. You make your case to the zoning hearing board, and they can grant it as a use by special exception, that it's basically
Okay.
equivalent.
Okay,
If you ask for something that's a lot more severe than on the list, then they should turn you down on that application.
Okay.
But wait, one more thing that you mentioned about your property is proposed on this map to be SD. Now,
I can't see the map.
okay, well, it is. And the SD, whenever we create that, if we do have the hearings to create, to match any of these parcels that we want to change, we still have to put a land use category on that, because SD already has residential land use category, commercial land use category, and industrial. So, I mean, at the time, if we decide we're going to change, I'm just saying we're going to change everything on our zoning to match this map, then your parcel in particular, we have to assign a land use category to it. So right now, it's SD, but it could be one of three. And you'd have a right to come in here and make a proposal, say,
Okay.
hey, I think this is.
Does that make sense?
That was my concern, yes. It makes sense, yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions by the audience?
Hi, Nancy Marshall, Tomahawk Claim Lane. First, I want to thank the board for changing the zoning for my property. I appreciate that. But I can't read some of the mapping. There's a yellow that has lines through it. What is that?
That's just.
Oh, that's medium density residential, so it's similar to an R2.
That's an R2.
Similar to. It's called, on this map, it's called medium density residential. Under the proposed plan from the comprehensive plan, it has a different than our current R2, but if you were comparing them, that's what I would compare it to, as an R2.
Okay, and just yellow is
Low
R1,
density,
and
yeah.
that's low density.
Yes.
Okay, let me just say that in the petition that I brought to you a couple of weeks ago, lots of people wanted that higher that low-density residential, and I really wish that you
So-
consider it.
So on this map, the way that low-density residential reads is more comparable, this is gonna be confusing, to the way it is in this medium density on this map. Because on the medium density residential, on this vision map, so on this comprehensive plan, it's half-acre lots, acre lots, which is what you were kind of asking for. The low-density residential, according to this vision plan, that the way that it's written today, if it doesn't change, is 2-acre lots, so it's bigger lots. So- What'd you say? Oh, I thought you were talking to me. So, you know, we had kind of talked about, and I had had another conversation with Gretchen about how we have to be careful about making large parcels, you know, in large areas of the land. And so this board wants to make sure that we're passing something that will hold muster should there be an actual zoning change to match that in the future. So I know that's a confusing way of saying, this is kind of what you were asking for, similar to. And I can show you, if you come up in between, I can show you the way it
Okay.
reads.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions by audience members? So at this point, this workshop is closed. Our next step will be to hold a public hearing related to this, because we're done at this point with workshops. So we have to hold a hearing in order to actually formally pass the comprehensive plan, the wording, and the map. So that will be announced at a future date. If you wanted to see this map, you can step up now. Our next meeting doesn't start till 7.